Everyone, welcome to Candidate Conversation, your community, your vote, an election interview series. Epicenter is co-producing with TBN24. I'm Habib Rahman with you, and I have Mitra Kalita alongside with me. Welcome again. We're
Thank
going to have
you.
a fun show today.
We are.
We're going to get to know a lot more than we are. I'm hoping. We'll see. We'll find out, because this is Manhattan. And
the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
We're in the Bronx.
Sorry.
We've been doing so many of these. We're all
right in the Bronx. And this is interesting because we are talking about the person who's up there now, not very much liked. So we'll find out why and why not, and who's there now or going to be, right? So today we are joined by Reverend Michael Blake. I'm going to say a few things about him. He's sitting alongside with me. Thanks for making time and coming here. We're going to have a candid conversation. We'll get to know you more.
Absolutely.
Many of our viewers are going to see you for the very first time.
We like that.
So I want you to tell us more about you, and we'll know your policy, what you intend to do, and all these things. Yeah. But let me throw a few words for our viewers, right? So Michael Blake, he's a Democratic candidate for Congress representing New York 15th Congressional District in the Bronx, purely in the Bronx, okay? Born and raised in South Bronx. Most people you'll see are competing, they're not born and raised where they're competing from. So in this scenario, he was born and raised in the Bronx. He's a son of Jamaican immigrant, Michael Blake. Built a career public service in public service, community organizing, and political leadership. He served in the Obama White House, represented in the Bronx, New York's Assembly, and later became vice chair of the DNC, Democratic National Committee. Big name, big institutions. So just keep that in mind, because we can touch on that too. Throughout his career, he has focused on issues affecting working families, including education, youth development, small business growth, housing, and economic opportunity. Now he is seeking a seat in Congress with campaigns centered on affordability, which is the hot topic nowadays, rightfully so, public safety, another thing, housing, education, and what he describes as a vision for more fair and prosperous Bronx. So, the congressional, the races often becomes, a reflection of a larger debate within Democratic parties and all these things. We're going to touch on all those things. Michael Blake, once again, welcome, and thank you for making time to be here with us today.
I appreciate you. I think the Manhattan comment earlier is because we were talking about the Knicks and the Madison Square Garden energy.
I mean, the vibe is there, it's still alive.
We understand the assignment. We need a championship to happen before the election.
No question. No question. It's been a long time.
53 years is a little too long.
I would say so.
A little too long.
I would say so. So I have, Kalita Mitra with me, and we were talking about, this election, especially with the current environments and whatnot, the polarize of, politics and ICE and affordability, many issues. In the midst of everything, you are running for a district, which is the Bronx, one of the poorest districts in the country, right? So you have your work cut out for you in a lot of ways. So I'll let you have.
Sure. I mean, I would love for you to kind of situate us in your origin story.
Yeah.
You actually, and Habib mentioned this, you're one of the rare challengers in a moment that New York is really debating who gets to be a New Yorker. Again, Habib and I have a pretty generous view of that because of our communities and who we represent. But that being said, you are from the place you're trying to represent. So tell us a little bit about your origin story, and before we get to the elected piece of it, how did the Reverend come into your title?
Well, this is truly the epitome of the Jamaican story, if you will. My mom always teases me and says that I was going to be one of three things, right? I was going to be a reverend, I was going to be a politician, or I was going to be a journalist. I ended up becoming all three. And so the opportunity that exists for me, in large part, was saying to everyone, this is who I am, right? Michael Alexander Blake. So my full name I'm named after Michael Manley Alexander Bustamante. So I'm named after Jamaican prime ministers. Yeah. That's what I know. That's where we come from. And I'm born and raised Preston and Burnside. I talk about that often. That's my home in the Bronx. So PS 79, 118 D with Clinton High School being what is home for me. My mama, for 40 years, worked at a manufacturing plant. She raised 4 boys, an absolutely incredible mom. My daddy was a janitor at St. Barnabas Hospital, union man, 1199 SEIU. And in this moment in time, service is what I know, right? So is what I know. My oldest brother is the first hero I knew. He served in the Army for 29 years. Like I just, that's where we came from. That's what we understand. And so the journey, I started preaching when I was 13, right? So I became an ordained reverend at 13. Or became a minister at 13, became ordained just 2 years ago. And I did not have gray when I started preaching at that point there. But my mom said it best, that you were going to be one of 3 things. And I ended up becoming all 3. So my career was in journalism before this and Northwestern University for undergrad. But life was changed forever when I got a chance to go work for President Obama. He trained me in 2006. The funny story of this is I was applying for a job to work for a union, Unite Here, which represents hotel and restaurant employees. And in the final interview, the president of the union says, my son is running this training program on how to train people with President Obama, then Senator Obama. And I turned down the job because I couldn't afford the pay cut because it was my first job out of college. But they then said, you should apply for this program. And I was one of 10 people that Senator Obama trained in the Yes We Can program in 2006. And that changed my life forever. So, to be able to be trained by the first Black president, to be able to be a reverend, to be able to be a community leader and all those things, that's what led me to this moment today.
Yeah. I just wondered if you could give us a little bit of the changes in the Bronx, because we, of course, TBN24 serves the growing Bangladeshi diaspora around the world. I think the political influence of this community is undeniable. I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the community that you're seeing. Are there, you talked about being a lifelong resident of the Bronx. Is there a influx of immigrants that you've seen from this community? Are you familiar with the Bangladeshi community? How does that play into your constituency?
Not only am I familiar with the Bangladeshi community, been able to collaborate, build with, spend so much time with over the years. And so I've been very fortunate that the Bangladeshi American Advocacy Group, BAG, has endorsed my campaign. In addition to the Alliance of South Asian American Labor, and so many groups have come together to support us. And we say regularly how we do this together. Now, I'm Jamaican, so I'm just going to say we can have a conversation about curry or cricket, and how we want to get down on who has the best right out here right now, right? But
goat curry or curry goat?
No, it's curry goat.
Okay.
we know the assignment out here right now. Come on. Look, we've been able to build and collaborate, and whether that be at masjids or at temples, whether it be at different events throughout the community. I was able to get all my colors at the festival a few weeks ago.
You sure?
I'm just saying. We know what time it is.
Colorful.
Yeah.
Color is, is Jamaica is known for.
Oh, but we were in this together. So, to the Bangladeshi community and the Bronx community.
Bangladesh people are very similar to Jamaican people, in a lot of ways, a lot of different ways. We love to have fun.
I was about to say you're good dancers then. Okay.
Yeah, we love to have fun.
That's
something, and simple things makes us happy.
There you go.
That's the happiness things in life. I'm going to go back to you're talking about you've been trained by Obama and you were fortunate enough to have a mentor like him. You were at a very important part in DNC, right? So I would like to know how was then as opposed to now. That's one thing, because we know the congressional races often becomes a reflection of a larger debate when it comes to the Democratic Party across the country. And we are seeing that today in a lot of ways. So I would like to discuss your vision for the Bronx, your priority for Washington, right? And why you believe that you are the right person for the New York's congressional districts. And from there, we're going to go into your opponent or the current incumbent that will lead us to APAC money and your policies and priorities and your agendas.
Yeah.
So let's start there first.
Look, I think at the end of the day, you have to tell people why you're good, right? And give them a vision that's exciting to them. And we're very clear that we deserve better and that we can't afford to wait, that we want to lay out how we can help more people. You know, how do you lower the price of rent, groceries, and gas and Con Ed? How do you say that we actually should fund books and not bombs? Getting very clear that we should actually protect our immigrants and not be supporting ICE. That we can do this in a much more impactful way. That you can have Medicare for all and also make sure we have Medicaid for our communities. That you can actually say that we'll protect our masjids, our temples, our shuls, and our churches so that they're safe havens, so that you don't have people entering into them and causing harm. And so our vision is we deserve better, right? We deserve better. We need to know that you're going to have people actually going to work for you and fight for you and actually going to help you. And I say this a lot. You know, I come from a community in the Bronx where people will come to Yankee Stadium, they'll go to Botanical Garden, they'll go to Bronx Zoo, they'll embrace hip hop and salsa and doo-wop, but then they don't want to actually talk about how they actually help us as a people. And that's why I'm running. And that's what you're hearing in my voice, because I know we deserve better. And I think it's also important to your question around the DNC. You know, I was vice chair of the DNC when we won, right?
Right.
We were part of the leadership that defeated Trump, right? And we did that because we weren't just talking about why he was bad, but we talked about why we were good. And at the same time, though, that's very applicable to this race, right? I am running against someone in 𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 who has not been good for the community. And I do think that we have to be willing to communicate contrast in elections, to say, why are you leaving from this person that you have seen and been out here? And the reason why I have more endorsements in this race than any challenger in the country to an incumbent says that people are ready to be with us. It ranges from everything from 5 DC 37 locals who have endorsed us to Unite Here, to Alliance South Asian Labor, from the Muslim Democratic Club of New York to One NYC, from the Yemeni American Action to Engage, to Africans for Political Progress, to Catholics for Good. It's a wide range of people who are rocking with us right now because we're giving them a vision to be excited about. And so I say, if you are looking for someone that wants to focus on affordability and lowering the price of rent, groceries, and gas, if you want to have someone who actually wants to have true affordable housing, if you want to have someone that's going to protect our immigrants, not harm our immigrants, if you want to have someone who's actually going to be opposed to this war and genocide that is happening right now in the world, my name is Michael Blake, and I want to be your congressman for the South Bronx.
I have a question. Since the 𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 issue came up, a lot of people, the critics, are saying that he hasn't done anything. I would not say anything, but something similar to that for the community.
He's taking money from AIPAC. But
right. So the AIPAC money is a big part of it. Yeah. And what's going on an international level, because you are going to be in Washington, the genocide, he didn't denounce it. He's taking money, AIPAC money, that goes against the sentiment of the NY15, the constituents, right? What is your take on this one? Because I was looking at your website, and first thing, whenever somebody says, we need to, make sure there is no anti-Semitism. Nowadays, it means a different thing. But right along that line, you said we need to protect the Muslim citizens. So I said, okay, the Reverend is level-headed here.
Absolutely.
Please explain.
Well, let's talk it through in steps.
Right.
𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 directly said that a genocide is a figment of imagination.
Yeah.
That's an actual quote from him. 𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 is taking money from the CEO of Palantir, which is leading not only as it relates to what's happening in the war, but equally in terms of harming our communities. When someone criticized them, 𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 then said that they were useful idiots. This is the language that he is using for people who are speaking out about this. And when we think about the context of this, you can't ignore your eyes and what is happening right now. People are dying for a senseless war that we have no business being in, where money is being spent, instead of being spent in our community to help us pay bills, it's being spent on a war, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And when we think about the context of this, we need to be able to address all things at the same time, whether it be the Muslim hate that is happening, not just here, but across the country. Obviously, we saw what happened in San Diego as a recent example, whether it be anti-Semitism that's happening here, or maybe it be in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, whether it be Christian hate, whether it be against a Sikh temple or Hindu temple or whatever it may be, we have to say at the same time, it's unacceptable. And we have someone in 𝗔𝗠cie 𝗧𝗕𝗡 who not only won't say that it's unacceptable, but he's gone the other route and going full throttle to be in support of AIPAC, even stating by showing with his own money, 𝗖𝗓 Torres personally invested in the weapons makers in the war. I want you to internalize this. Not some theoretical conversation. This man is making money off of the war. And so when we think about how our communities are protected, how could someone protect you when they care about more of their money than they care about you as the people? And so, as again, you can hear my voice like this. Yeah. There's a tremendous difference in this.
You know, I hear the frustration.
It's not, and look, we should all be pissed. I mean, like, yeah, people are literally dying, and we have a congressman who is fine with this, correct, for the purpose of campaign donation.
Not only fine with it, he's championing it.
He is supportive.
He's championing it.
He is directly communicating that he supports all of what's happening, and then is telling people that what is going on, you are imagining.
Yeah.
I got to ask how this is landing on the ground in the Bronx, because I think among one group of New Yorkers, I think Habib captures sentiment towards 𝗖𝗓 Torres of, you know, being very pro-Israel and kind of the symbol in a sea of New York politicians who've, you know, were much quicker to call out genocide. And I'll say for most of my career in journalism, Michael, you mentioned you have a background in journalism. This was the third rail of politics, right? We really kind of did not use that word. And, you know, I just want you to reflect a little bit on your own views on Israel, Palestine, the use of the word genocide, because you also come out of, as Habib mentioned, democratic institutions where in the Obama administration, this still remained the third rail of politics. So is this an issue that you've moved further to the proverbial left on? How are you thinking about this? And then how is this landing in the Bronx? Because among another set of friends I have who are Jewish New Yorkers, 𝗖𝗓 Torres has been held up as, well, this is one of the New York politicians who still has our backs. I'm just wondering how this, your own kind of evolution on the Israel issue, and then is this the number one issue for residents of the Bronx?
It is. It's the number one issue of some communities, of course, not of every single person per se, but I would say it's a beautiful combination of so many considerations at the same time. I'm an ordained reverend, Christian reverend, which for context, I believe that Jesus was a Palestinian Jewish man, a man of color, who spoke multiple languages, who was in a foreign land as a refugee. That is what I believe, right? I am of the belief of that because of my Christian teachings. And in order to have that teaching, I have to have an understanding what happens beforehand in terms of the Jewish faith and other faiths itself, right? I have preached in Israel and I've been to the Middle East. I have prayed with Jews, Christians, and Muslims. I have baptized people in the Jordan River. I have been at the Western Wall. And so when we think about that, to start to the question, being critical of Netanyahu and the government of Israel does not make someone anti-Semitic. And too often what has happened, to your comment, which is totally spot on, it has effectively become a third rail to have the conversation of what is going on. I'm so grateful that you all created this space because there have been several media outlets who do not want to talk about us in this race because of how directly critical I have been on the issue. Ironically enough, you have other candidacies in other districts where there are people who are not Black, who are talking very similar to me, if not even further to the left, who are actually getting more coverage. Why? In part, to your point, because 𝗖𝗓 Torres has, by his own acknowledgement, describes himself as a Zionist. He says this in interviews himself. And equally, he said in the Guy Benson interview on June 18th of 2025, that not only does he support the war, but that he supports the U.S. and Israeli government making sure that Iran does not have a weapon and bombing there. And so when you think about that, to that degree, you have very clear differences here. Now, to the question as well around genocide and war itself, right? We can't ignore what's happening. And I think too often what has occurred is a fear of utilizing the word out of the fear that it may create pain. It is not the intent of me trying to make someone feel bad by acknowledging what I'm seeing as a fact that is happening here, right? We can't be in a scenario where we could watch and see tens of thousands of people being killed by a government that is taking intentionality for doing so, where a government that has also been accused repeatedly of war crimes, and then say, well, we're unwilling to say that because we're afraid of the repercussions. And so, you know, I choose to be at peace with my creator, right? And that means being willing to speak up on this. Lastly, to the question in terms of the issues, the fundamental issues on the ground are around affordability, right? The fundamental issues on the ground is, okay, what are you doing to help us? And in a recent poll that came out last week, when voters learned of the different policies between myself and 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡, it showed that I was ahead 41-38 in that poll, with the final group being undecided. Because when people have learned, there is a difference here. You have someone in me who opposes the war, 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡 supports the war. I am supporting immigrants. 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡 has 4 times supported of ICE to deport people. When you think about what's happening in immigration, which is so critical in the community, you have an individual who is supporting deporting you rather than protecting you in 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡. And so to your question, there are communities, of course, that are regularly talking to us about this. And in the reverse, it's the reason why I can go into Little Yemen in the 80th Assembly District, or I can go to 𝗖𝗓𝗏 in the 77th Assembly District, or I can go to North Bronx Islamic Center, and I can go to these different places, and they will say, when I walk in, October 7th changed everything for us, but it also changed everything for us as it relates to 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡. Because 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡 made a decision to continue to convey his support for Israel's government, but also to neglect the pain that people are feeling. Because for someone to say, which he has said, that a genocide is a figment of your imagination, you are literally then saying in 𝗖𝗎 𝗧𝗕𝗡 that for anyone who believes this, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, or you're hallucinating one of the others, right? But
then you're only doing that because you're trying to placate one side.
Absolutely, yes. But I just want to tell you, because I'm going to go into real issues like affordability, housing, and all these things. On a international level, foreign policy level, we are asking these questions because you will be sitting in Washington, right?
Hopefully, Congress,
so, right, of course, right?
Foreign policy is
correct,
quite critical right now.
Right. Now, whatever you said, if any normal person, sane person, hears you, will understand what you're saying. There's no question about this. But yet we have seen saying what you're saying today cause issues within the Democratic Party. We saw that with Jamal Bowman, right? And he's my friend.
He's endorsed me.
No, Jamal Bowman is my friend. Okay. I'm not saying because I like him. I say because what he stands for is exactly, very close to what you were saying, if not exact the same, right? Yeah. That poses challenges within your own party.
But things have shifted dramatically.
Explain.
Look, in there's recent polling among Democratic primary voters,
right,
that AIPAC is negative 22 points underwater. Just so someone hearing the word AIPAC, not even going down the road of talking about Netanyahu, talking about the government, right, people just hearing it, they're like, oh, I'm totally turned off and opposed to that.
Correct.
That is, to the earlier question, which is spot on around like how things have shifted.
Yeah.
That shift is dramatic in the last year.
Right.
Right. Of where people feel and where they stand on this. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the connection point, when you are in an area in the Bronx in particular,
right,
in New York 15, 750,000 residents, 297,000 Democrats registered, people are watching that they can't get funding for elevators, for working doors, for locks, for their buildings.
Yeah.
Their kids can't get the help they need. Their parents and grandparents can't get prescription drugs, but they're watching in real time a war being funded that Trump and Bibi were able to collaborate together for billions of dollars to go to bomb another country. then people are like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And so I do think what we're seeing in real time is people want to know, where do you stand? I was at an event this past weekend where people were coming out from the event. I mean, you're campaigning all the time at this point. And someone said immediately, you don't have to say anything to me. I know where your position is on the war, and I'm voting for you.
So it is coming up on the ground. This is helpful to hear. I do want to make sure we get to some of the affordability issues and others. And just in preparation for these, we have consulted with, of course, our communities, but also we talked to the Latino Dems of New York City, and this question was posed by them. Many voters support criminal justice reform, but also want safer streets and subways. Do you think New York has found the right balance, and what specific changes would you support to improve public safety without rolling back reform efforts? And what do you think that the federal government's role is in public safety in New York City?
Well, it's all intertwined, right? Everybody needs to get home and deserves to get home safely. So public safety is that feeling you have and the conditions that are created. Whether it be if I'm getting on the train and there's a mental health issue that is happening, and is that person being supported? Whether that be my interactions with law enforcement, people will just want to know, will we get home and will we be safe? And so we're taking and making the right steps, but we have to make sure that we also don't harm our criminal justice reforms. I was part of the team in the legislature when I was in the assembly for 6 years, where we focused on raise the age so that 16 and 17-year-olds were not tried as adults any longer in criminal court because they are a kid, and given that recognition there. Speedy trial, open discovery, we took those steps there. But now we also have to go further steps. We have to fund our credible messengers. We have to fund violence interrupters. We have to fund alternatives to incarceration. We have to make sure that there's more help that happens on the front end. Equally, an education vision is tied to a public safety vision. If you make sure kids have more things to do, give them more programs, allow for schools to be open a little bit later in the day and on the weekends and in the summers, make sure there's a true pipeline in creating jobs with higher wages. You take those steps, it is far less likely that someone's then going to go down the road of some criminal injustice because they have a job, they have a career, they have a livelihood. You know, I do say, Mitra, a lot of times, that young brother or young sister that's standing on the corner, they are a mathematical genius. They just have to be directed the right route, right? And too often what they're seeing is what's the fastest way for them to make some money? But there's a better way, right? And we try to tell people, your block won't block your blessing, your zip code won't deny your destiny. So if you take those steps, you can address it in a real way. But also going back to my first point around public safety, mental health is critical, right? And there are too many communities right now where the mental health crisis is not being addressed in a real way. You also have to have greater accountability. There has to be a scenario where we want to have a federal police misconduct registry. I do believe simultaneously there needs to be one as relates to federal agents for ICE and other entities as well, so that someone is not bouncing around the different jobs and you don't actually know what they've done before that. And we have to make sure that we're protecting all of our communities and doing very practical things. Is there better lighting in our public housing developments and communities so people actually can see what's going on? Is there a faster way for responses that come from the NYPD? How do we have 311 and 911 being more in sync? Taking those kinds of steps will allow for greater eligibility around public safety, but in particular to the Latino community, to your question, it's that balancing act here, right? Because you'll have conversations around immigration, which we've touched on in a few different spaces here, and which there will be dialogue on, well, do we talk about immigration in terms of ICE versus public safety, right? Everyone needs to have public safety, full stop, right? We also need to hold ICE accountable. And there are people within ICE that need to be prosecuted and entities need to be prosecuted. But we have to make sure that people also understand that they have safety in their communities when they get back home.
Mr. Blake, I also want to ask this candidly. You've run for office several times. So this is your second run against 𝗖𝗍 𝗳𝗏 for Congress. You ran for mayor last year. And I know there was a kind of arrangement with you and our current mayor, Mamdani, where you cross-endorsed. Yeah. And you've also run for public advocate. Yeah. So some people might see this as persistence. Others might say, oh, he keeps running for office. He just wants to get in there. I'm wondering if you could tell us what keeps you coming back? And how would you address this issue of, he's run for a few things?
Yeah. Well, I also ran for assembly and was elected 3 times in 3 primaries and general election 3 times. I was elected vice chair of the Democratic National Committee itself. I think it's important that when you have a calling, you continue to pursue that. Running for office is essentially you're applying for a job. And I would not say to any person here, any person watching, you know what? You apply for a few different jobs and you didn't get them. You should stop applying, right? And too often we allow the haters, quite frankly, to try to define you by when you're not successful. I want people to define me by what I did when I served. I created the My Brother's Keeper program, the only one in the U.S. that exists right now for us helping Black and brown kids to go to school and graduate from school. We co-led diversity in medicine to make sure more Black and brown doctors were able to get funding for those programs. We were able to have the prompt pay bill to help our minority women-owned businesses get paid faster in New York State. Those are things we did. So why do you continue to want to serve? Because there's a greater calling to help more people. And that has not gone away. And especially has not gone away given what's happening in the community and how the people need help right now. Simultaneously, in the reverse, you have great individuals who have run for multiple offices, were not successful, but then were successful. Our public advocate right now, 𝗔𝗯𝗖𝗟𝗏𝗰𝘁 𝗔𝗓𝗔𝗓𝗏, where we ran against each other in that special election. He ran for governor, he ran for lieutenant governor, he ran for city council speaker, was not successful, but then became successful in that next term. You have 𝗔𝗓𝗏𝗃 𝗔𝗓𝗓𝗏, ran for city council, didn't win, then came back around within that. You have many people who have not been successful in a temporary moment who have now been successful. And so I think it's important on, well, why are you doing this? Because I want to help the people. And I would say in reverse, if for any of you who have children in particular, if your child doesn't do well on the test, you would say, okay, let's keep going, right? I have 17 and 14-year-old bonus daughters in our family here. So it's like you always encourage them. If they don't do well in a basketball or volleyball game, we won't say to them, well, don't keep going. No, you say keep going, right? Keep making progress. When you're applying for jobs, okay, you say keep going. And why are we continuing to go? Because we have more to do. And to the question, those who know us and know our heart see why I'm doing this. It's the reason why I have 32 endorsements in this race running against an incumbent, from Congressman Bowman to Mayor de Blasio to Mayor Baraka, to 6 labor endorsements that have already happened, to the different groups. Candidly, thinking about this from a dynamic, Richard Torres' office on Fordham Road, the high school Democrats of America, the college Democrats of America, and the Fordham College Democrats who are across the street from his office have endorsed us. People see our heart and they focus more on our heart rather than that.
You mentioned endorsements, and you mentioned Mayor Mamdani cross-endorsing you in the last mayoral. He has not endorsed you in this race. Are you hoping that changes? Are you in conversations with him? The endorsements has been such a huge issue in this primary.
I just want to remind you, we are running out of time. So
we always want more support. And we're grateful for any and all support that can come. We're definitely reaching out to their team, but we are grateful that Ali Najmi, who is the mayor's key lawyer from the outside and
a longtime person who both Epicenter and TBN have interviewed, and they're very accessible to us. Yes,
Ali has publicly endorsed us, has publicly spoken out for us, done videos for us. Many people from Mayor Mamdani's team have communicated that support. And I do think that there's another big difference here. I cross-endorsed Mayor Mamdani. Richie Torres said that the city would have a downfall if he won. People need to know the truth and be reminded of that.
We are almost towards the end. You got 30 seconds. If prospective voters who are watching, especially in the Bronx, if you were to tell them one thing, why they would vote you, and when is the vote, and how to find you on the ballot.
My name is Michael Blake. I'm a Democrat running for Congress in the 15th District. I'm the third name on the ballot. We're asking for your support because we deserve better. You can go to michaelblakeforcongress.com to learn more about us. Early voting begins from June 13th to the 21st. Absentee voting has begun. Primary day is June 23rd. If there's one issue that you want to think about as a major difference that we always need to talk about more, it's immigration. I am a son of immigrants. I'm fighting for immigrants. We're saying we have to make sure we protect you from ICE. Richie Torres voted for the Laken Riley Act that would increase deportations. Richie Torres voted to express gratitude for ICE. For any of us, whether if you are Bangladeshi, Jamaican, Latino, any of our communities, if there's one thing that is very clear in this difference, in this race, Michael Blake is here to protect immigrants. 𝗖𝗍 𝗧𝗕𝗡 is supporting ICE.
Michael Blake, thank you. I mean, it's good to have you in the studio for the very first time. I wish you all the best. I'm going to say goodbye to you and good luck. Mitra, I'm going to have to say goodbye to you too.
Yeah, but we still have a bunch of electives to get through. So it's
Don't
more
tell
like
everybody
it's
that.
more like a see you later.
See you later.
And we
Okay.
need to make sure we remind people to vote. That's the the real last
I mean,
word. We want to
listen,
leave
I was
them with.
having a conversation with Mr. Blake, and one thing he said, and actually he's right, that Bangladeshi people in the Bronx do not vote as much as, you know, the other communities. So please exercise your what is it called?
Civic duty.
rights, or, you know, and do take part in the city, because your future is in your hand when you vote. We'll see you on the next episode. Good night.